Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about victory gardens back in World War II. Victory gardens were extremely popular back then. They were almost a necessity because there were food rationing going on. So you had to fill in the spaces where you couldn't get the fresh fruits and vegetables. You had to get them from your garden if you could not get them from the store. Again, rationing was at the height, and they sent many things over to the troops so they would have enough food to fight the war. I have a few notes here. It said labor and transportation shortages made it hard to harvest and move the fruit and vegetables to the market. Again, while I'm going through the list of things that happened back in World War II with the victory gardens, see if anything relates to today, just randomly. Just keep that in mind when I'm going through this. 20 million Americans planted gardens in World War II. They planted the gardens in their backyards. They planted empty lots. They planted city rooftops. Neighbors would plant different things and pool their resources. They would plant different crops. Like I would plant corn. They would plant cabbage and whatever it might be. And then we would share. And this is when co-ops were formed. So a whole neighborhood might have gone together. Well, Joe's planting all the corn for us and Susie's planting all the tomatoes for us, and they just switched. They shared. So it formed a co-op. Now, they canned all the produce they possibly could. It was harvest season and they would can it, and this made it where they could have vegetables and fruit, because they made jams and jellies, for the winter because the gardens were not in production. So in 1943, families purchased pressure canners. I don't know if you can imagine the number of pressure canners that were purchased. The number was 315,000 pressure canners purchased by families in 1943. Well, they had the gardens, they wanted to save their produce, and they wanted to can it or jar it, so they had to have a pressure canner. So that's what they did. They saved and they put things away for the winter. Some of these things we're doing right now and have been doing, and some homesteaders have done it for a very long time. 9 to 10 million tons of food came from victory gardens. That's amazing. That much food. So it just goes to show you that if you start a large garden, or if you plant everywhere you can, that people can produce food. I'm not saying right away produce everything for their family. But think about all the empty space that we have in our cities, on the roadsides, whatever it might be. Especially in the city. You have a strip of land in the middle of two roads, and it has bushes or trees or grass. Why not plant vegetables there? Well, I know the traffic is bad now, but let's say it's on a side road in a neighborhood. It may come to the point where you take part of a park and make it into a big old garden, a community garden, out of necessity. Now, in 1946, all of a sudden, not many people planted gardens, but agriculture had not caught up yet. They had not geared up yet. So the country had, you've got it, some food shortages, because they had not caught up with the production. Everything ended, and it was like, okay, well, now we don't have to plant a garden anymore, and that was a lot of work, and that was the end of that. Now, schools, going back to where gardens were planted, schools actually had gardens on their property, on their campuses. Every available space that could be gardened was gardened if they had someone to take care of it. So that was good. I'm sure that, kids went out at a certain class or subject and went out and learned how to garden, because it wasn't a very big necessity at that time. The United States government printed up recipe books, and they described on how to prepare the homegrown items that came out of your garden, and the vegetables and the fruit, and how to make nutritious and tasty meals. Because if you've never grown a garden before, you're trying to figure out, what do I do with this stuff? Yeah, I love corn, but how am I going to do it? Do I put salt? Do I not put salt? I'm used to going to the store. It's in a package. I open it up, I dump it in a pot, I warm it up, and that's corn. Well, that's not the way it is when you grow a garden. And corn's just an example. Now, Victory Gardens brought to the U.S. American table Swiss chard and kohlrabi. The Americans all of a sudden had this on their dinner table because they were easy to grow. They grew and grew and grew. So the housewives had to figure out what to do with these new vegetables. So there were a lot of recipes that came out of that era on those two vegetables. And they were nutritious. Well, stop back by for the next video on Victory Gardens. I'm going to go into more detail. I'm going to go into more detail about rationing. But think about some of the things I've gone over this morning. How does it equate to what we're going through today? People are planting more gardens. They're wanting to turn every area of their yard into a garden. They're canning more. They're learning how to can. Shortages are out there. Limited supplies are out there. Prices are rising every single day. So it's like the Victory Gardens were that the produce and all the things rationed were being sent to the troops. So the Americans had to step up and kind of take care of themselves. Grab some printed cookbooks, find some things. If it's online, see if you can print them, have them in your kitchen. Learn how to cook from your garden, can, and preserve your food, and put back food for your family and if you have close friends. I'm so glad you stopped by today, and I wish you all the luck in your gardens.